This is problem number 4 on the practice problems request number 3. Simplify each expression as much as possible. Quantity 4/9 to the 1/2. So what does 1/2 mean? 4/9 is here. Fraction power means radical. The 1 in the fraction goes outside. The 2 is the index. So this is really just saying the square root of 4/9. And we know square roots behave nicely when they have fractions inside them. We can split it up into 2 roots, and we just get 2/3. You don't need to split it up, but I wanted to write all the details. So 2/3 is our answer. Notice it's not plus or minus 2/3. The square root symbol by itself means the positive or the principal square root. So it's just 2/3. Part B, 1/8 to the negative 2/3. So first thing I do when I see a fraction raised to a negative power is I flip the fraction over and I make it a positive power. The 2/3 doesn't get flipped over. That's the power. It just gets copied, but now it's positive. And the effect of changing the negative power to the positive is flipping over the thing inside the parentheses. Okay, it's kind of silly to write that 1, so I won't write it anymore. I'll just write 8 to the 2/3. What does 2/3 mean? It means there's a radical happening. 8 is here. The 2 is the power. I'll put it out there. 3 is the index. It goes in front of the root. I'll put parentheses. Don't really need them. You're also welcome to put the 2 inside. That's fine to do 8 squared first, but I always put the power outside because I want the numbers to get smaller before they get bigger. So cube root of 8 is 2. So the whole thing in the parentheses is 2, and then it's still squared. So 4 is our final answer. Part C, 9 over x squared to the 1/2. What does 1/2 mean? It means there's a radical. In fact, the 1/2 here means the same as the 1/2 over in part A. So ultimately that just meant square root. So if you practice enough, you'll just won't even bother writing the 1 and the 2 like we did here first. You'll just say, okay, 1/2 is a power, means square root. So we're just going to write it as square root. And then we'll split it. I don't need to see this step, but I'm going to include all the details. And then the square root of 9 is 3. Square root of x squared is x. Technically should be absolute value around there, but we'll go ahead and assume that all the variables here are positive. So I won't include the absolute value, but technically it should be there. We'll just call 3 over x our final answer. Moving on to part D, negative 49 to the 5/2. So I see 5/2, that means there's a radical. 5 is the power, I'll put it outside. The 2 is the index, I'll put it here. Big question, what goes inside the radical? Is it 49 or is it negative 49? In some cases it makes no difference. In this case it makes a big difference. So you have to ask yourself, does that 5/2 have the strength to reach that negative sign? The answer is no. We know the order of operations says exponents come before multiplication. So I'm going to rewrite this as a -1 times 49 to the 5/2. After all, that's what a negative is, just a -1 times. So that -1 is sitting here in the front, and 49 is positive right there. We don't need the parentheses here, but I'll put them just so we can really see the 5th power on the outside. Okay, and then we do a -1 sitting here waiting. Square root of 49 is 7. 7 to the 5th. We use the calculator for that one. So we're doing 7 raised to the 5th. 16,807. So with the negative sign, we have our final answer. Part E, 1 over 100 to the -1/2 power. So if I see a negative power, I think of motion. That 100 is in the bottom. It moves to the top. And simultaneous to moving it, you change the sign on that power. So the -1/2 on the bottom is the same as a +1/2 as a power up on top. Okay, so what's left on the bottom? Well, nothing, but don't put a 0. 1 is our placeholder. What about the one upstairs? Well, it has no reason to move. It's still up there. So this problem is really just 100 to the half. But as we've seen, 1/2 means square root. Square root of 100 is 10.